Newsmaker Sunday with Fox 10's John Hook.
Thanks for joining us on Newsmaker Sunday. We're going to begin the program today by hearing from an old pro from the U.S. Senate, Jon Kyl, who just retired a few years ago, but gives us a little bit of insight. An interview that Steve Kraft did with Jon Kyl this week that I thought was worth repeating in its entirety. He talks about the division in Washington and what needs to be done to get some things done in the nation's capital. Here's Steve Kraft's interview with former Arizona Senator Jon Kyl.
I started in 1995 and finished in January of 2013.
Do you miss the place?
I miss my friends there. I go up there quite a bit.
Everybody says that about where they used to work. I miss my friends, but...
Well, it was a great job. No better job. But there was a time to leave, and I left, and I haven't looked back.
Well, I appreciate that. So, you're listening and watching. You're hearing all the noise coming out of D.C. How do we restore compromise, civility, the things that we are told are supposed to happen on Capitol Hill?
One of the theories is that there's something broken about our system. I don't believe that. I think the system has worked in the past. It can work in the future. The key is good leadership. And I think what we've seen recently is a breakdown in leadership. And once one side starts shooting at the other, and then there's a response, then there's a reply to that response, and finally it gets to the point where nobody can remember when the first shot was fired, but it doesn't matter because everybody's mad at everybody else. And that's where we're at right now.
How do we break that impasse?
I think it's up to the leaders. The leaders who have a sense of how, for example, in the Senate, which is where most of my experience is, the adults there need to sit down and have a very serious conversation with each other and then start to try to build the trust back up again, which is wanting at this point. And by the way, we've got a new president who is not familiar with a lot of the traditions and the comity and the collegiality that used to exist. That's not really his style. He'll have to be a part of that as well.
Do you think that Senator McConnell did the right thing by not allowing Merrick Garland to have a hearing last time?
Absolutely. That's the tradition. There's never been a nominee. Well, I think there may have been one way back, but for 80 years, I don't think there's been a nominee. Once the presidential campaign starts and there's a vacancy on the court, generally there's a timeout called until the people elect a new president. That person is then given the opportunity to make the nomination, and the Senate then votes on it. And that's what happened here.
What would you say to President Trump?
Well, he'll have a lot to learn, as he knows. Listen to very experienced leaders like Speaker of the House Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, who you mentioned. Those are people who understand how those bodies could work if they have good leadership. And I would also say to the people in the media who helped to make Donald Trump, at least to get him through the primary, and certainly continue to cover him a lot, that they need to watch that they don't create undue expectations. There's kind of a sense out there on the right that if the Congress and the President can't get all of these things done in about 2 weeks, that somehow they're to blame. I'm exaggerating, but the point is, legislating takes a lot of time, especially if you're trying to reach bipartisan compromise. You can't expect all of these things to be achieved overnight. And to the left, get over it. Stop being so angry. Trump won. Granted, everyone was surprised, but now it's time to sit down and work together and govern.
Okay, do you think the Democrats should try to filibuster the Gorsuch nomination?
I think it would be a big mistake if they did, because just as Harry Reid, the Democratic leader, changed the rules to get Obama's nominees through, if the Democrats tried to filibuster the Supreme Court nomination, then Mitch McConnell would have to do the same thing. I would think the Democrats would prefer not to have a mere majority vote for Supreme Court justices. Maybe they elect a president in 4 years who nominates someone to the bench, and maybe they'd like to have the 50% so Republicans can't filibuster it. But I think that's looking too short range. My guess is that they will act in such a way that the Republicans have to change the rules, but I think the Democrats would be better to wait and maybe do that after the second nomination, if there is one.
Why have a filibuster at all?
The Senate was designed to slow things down, to cool things off, and to give the minority rights. In the House of Representatives, the minority have virtually no rights. So the Senate, which runs by unanimous consent, operates this way. I ask unanimous consent that we proceed to the following bill. I object. Time out. Why do you object? Well, you haven't assured us that we're going to get the number of amendments we want. Well, how many amendments do you want? Pretty soon you've got a negotiation going on and a compromise, the majority and the minority. And I think that kind of compromise is a good thing. That way everybody in the country gets represented, not just, say, 52% who happen to be in the majority.
What about increasing earmarks?
Earmarks are the grease that some people said make the system work. I don't happen to believe that that kind of grease, when you're using taxpayer dollars, is the best way for leaders to be able to get their way. It's basically a way for leaders to bribe members and get them to go along. I think there are better ways. Again, it gets back to leadership.
Anything else you want to say about this? You're watching this from a very special perch.
Yeah, just one thing, and that is for folks who are watching you, and I appreciate your story here, have a little patience and understand that things take time. It's going to take time for the new people in the Congress and the administration to get a feel for each other. And if you're angry, try to get over the anger, watch it carefully, be patient, see what develops.
Jon Kyl with some very interesting advice given the divisiveness in Washington right now. When we return on Newsmaker Sunday, it's hard to believe that Arizona was ever a place that had just an all-black high school, but it did. Carver High School, George Washington Carver High School, and now becoming a museum and cultural center. And the driving force behind it, we're going to spend some time with former Phoenix City Councilman, a legendary figure on the political scene here, and a treasure to this community. Calvin Goode will join us, as well as Kim Covington, who left Channel 12 and is now helping raise money for this effort and others. We'll speak to both of them on Newsmaker Sunday when we come back right after this. There may be people in this community that don't know a lot about George Washington Carver High School in downtown Phoenix, and it was the first and only all-black high school in the state of Arizona. And we're going to talk about an effort to restore it and turn it into the George Washington Carver Museum and Cultural Center. This is a place that is a real touchstone and has tremendous importance in this community. And two people to talk about it today are some familiar faces. Calvin Goode, who was on the Phoenix City Council for 22 years, attended Carver High School. And Kim Covington, good to see you on TV.
Good to see you again.
Channel 12 for many years.
Yes.
And you are now helping raise money in this effort.
I am. Thank you so much for having us.
It's good to have you back. If you didn't know, Kim went through a horrific car accident a few years ago.
Yeah,
And
3 years ago.
Went through a long effort to come back, and it's great to see you back.
Thank you so much.
You feeling well?
I'm feeling great, better than ever.
And you're loving doing this.
I am. I mean, I'm really helping the community, little small ways, but maybe big ways, you know, when you collaborate and work with amazing people like Mr. Goode. We can do big things one step at a time.
I want to, because he won't say it, he's a modest guy, but to get to know him, Calvin Goode, what has that meant to you?
Oh my goodness, he is as much of a treasure or more of a treasure than the Carver building that we're talking about. He's our hero. We look up to him, and he is the reason why we're seeing so many people rally around this dream to restore the Carver Museum. I mean, because he went to school there, because he graduated and was able to tell this story, and then began to move this community and become a leader of this community, it gives us a lot of hope for the future, and that future is in the Carver Museum, and that story alone is helping us raise a lot of awareness and raise money, enough money to restore, hopefully, the Carver Museum and Cultural Center. So he carries a lot of weight.
Mr. Goode, and we're going to show the piece here in a moment. We were just taken aback a little bit. The life that you have seen, much of it at Carver, because you worked there for many years. You went to high school there. I think you started there when you were 16. Is that about right?
No, I was just my senior year.
Your senior year was there. You were sick before that. You were living up in Prescott, moved down here, and went to Carver. Can you just tell me what Carver means to you?
Well, for the last 20 years I've been involved in trying to tell a story of the contributions that African Americans have made to this nation, and certainly Carver, a great man who did much for this community and for this country.
He was a Renaissance man, a scientist. He dabbled in all kinds of things. He's a very interesting
Well, I don't
guy.
know about all kinds of things, but certainly all of the good things. And
Right.
We do have a statue there in front of the school also of Dr. George Washington Carver.
That's right. That's right. I want to take you to Steve Kraft's story for a moment that you did with Steve about a week ago, and I think it will kind of lay the foundation for the conversation to follow. Take a look.
Here's your proof. Calvin C. Goode, the C is for Coolidge, is a living legend. Right across from Phoenix City Hall, the Calvin C. Goode Municipal Building. You have a building named after you while you're still alive and kicking. What's that like?
It's an honor, and I appreciate the building and the artifacts in the building.
Mr. Goode graduated from George Washington Carver High School, just south of downtown Phoenix. The school named for the brilliant scientist, artist, and educator. Maurice Ward graduated from Carver, too. It was an all-black school. I'm trying to imagine segregated Phoenix. Fortunately, I missed it. What was it like?
Well, as an American citizen, I have felt that I am entitled to all of the rights and privileges that any other citizen born here in this country. But we also had the restaurants and the theaters and schools and so forth were segregated, and I think that's wrong.
Back when Calvin Goode and Maurice Ward were in school, there were lines not to be crossed, and Van Buren was one of them.
When I was growing up, you could not go north of Van Buren Street.
What do you mean you couldn't go north of Van?
Because you were not, if you found the police or whatever would stop you, and if you weren't there to work in somebody's house or mow somebody's lawn, you were turned around and sent back to the black section.
And buying a home in Phoenix? Rules about that, too.
Now, there were housing. If houses were to be sold north of Van Buren, there were codicils on the deed that said this house cannot be sold to Negroes or Mexicans. That's what I mean.
Carver High's distinguished days as a school are over. Now, Calvin Goode and Maurice Ward are committed to preserving its memory. This is the George Washington Carver Museum and Cultural Center, and this, of course, is a statue of the man himself, George Washington Carver. This place is very much a work in progress, and Calvin Goode says he needs your help to make it happen. There'll be a fundraiser on Saturday, January 28th, to honor Calvin Goode as he reaches 90, raising money to finish work in the Carver Museum and Cultural Center. Calvin Goode has this message on Martin Luther King Day.
Well, certainly we talk about America being the shining example of democratic principles and ideas and treatment of its citizens. So I certainly hope that wherever you live, you ought to be thinking in terms of equal rights for all people.
In Phoenix, Steve Kraft, Fox 10 News.
We're sitting here watching this, and I'm watching generations observe this from very different perspectives. You remember it like it was yesterday. When you watch that, Kim, it's almost unimaginable.
Yeah, I can't
that
relate
was
to
Phoenix
that.
not that long ago.
Not that long ago, and you know, it's sad. It brings tears to my eyes knowing that that's what they went through. But you know, my parents experienced the same things, and they tell those stories. And we have a living legend here who is able to describe what he's learned. Thank goodness he's able to tell those stories, and we are able to make sure it doesn't happen again. And the Carver Museum can be that type of institution where we can share stories like that, so that we can understand each other's culture.
Right.
You know,
and not share it just with the black community, but share it with the white community, all communities.
A public institution where we can share African American culture, and it's not just African American culture, it's American history, you know, and beautiful art, and support STEM, and and other types of learning for the entire community. And the Arizona Community Foundation has set up a restoration fund. And the Arizona Community Foundation is the state's largest grant maker. And we are so proud to be able to help all of these community leaders, like Mr. Goode, restore this museum so that it can remain profitable and many people from all over the world can come and visit for years to come.
You started this effort 20 years ago. Is that about right?
That is
What was the idea? What was it you wanted to accomplish?
certainly to develop, to showcase the contributions that African Americans have made to this nation. When I studied American history, I felt that we were left out and that we've made great contributions. And certainly George Washington Carver is one of my favorite people. And I was very pleased when my three sons stepped forward and said, Calvin, we're going to help you. When the community council group came in, I'm thrilled.
I want to run something by you that was really interesting. George Washington Carver, scientist and inventor, he had a list of 8 cardinal virtues. There are 3 that are really interesting to me. Be too brave to lie, be too generous to cheat, take your share of the world and let others take theirs.
And that's something we ought to all live by.
All 8 are worth reading, but those 3 I thought I mean, you teach your children that stuff, right?
Yes.
You've taught
Not
your
only the children, but others in the community. And sometimes even old folks.
When you look at Phoenix now, Mr. Goode, how do you feel we are doing in the world of race relations in this city?
We are doing better, but at the same time, we've not completely arrived. We don't have a person of color on the city council, for instance, and I can think in terms of the other political positions in this city. So we still have a way to go.
Kim, you're obviously younger than Mr. Goode. Do you feel that this is a welcoming place? Have you felt welcome?
Oh my goodness, I love Arizona. Arizona's been good to me and my family, and I've met so many welcoming people. It's diverse.
Do they believe you back in St. Louis when you tell them this? You know Arizona's reputation.
No, they don't.
Okay.
I mean, they watch the news. I mean, there are more news hounds there than I am, and so we all need not be afraid of each other. And the way that you do that is to learn about each other's cultures, you know, to learn about Carver and what he stood for, and to walk in the areas that Mr. Goode walked. And it's important for us all to go back so that we can go forward. And
I love that.
I love what Mr. Goode and Carver stands for, and I think that we can all get to know each other better, and so there'll be no more fear and no more hatred, and that's what happens when you improve cultural centers like the Carver.
We're going to take a break on Newsmaker Sunday. When we come back, we're going to talk about how you can help make this happen to restore the Carver High School and the George Washington Carver Museum and Cultural Center. We're going to talk about a little bit about some of the efforts to make this all happen and go forward right after this on Newsmaker Sunday. Welcome back on Newsmaker Sunday. Carver High School was opened in 1926 by the Phoenix Union High School District as Phoenix Union's colored high school. It was renamed Carver High School in 1943, and I think Mr. Goode, it closed, what, 1945? Is that about right?
Yes.
And so you attended there for 1 year, your senior year. I didn't realize all the teachers there had advanced degrees. We were talking in the break, masters, doctorates.
Mr. Robinson insisted, and we had quality education there.
So you felt that set you on your path?
I do feel very strongly.
Then you came back to work there.
Yes, I did.
Why did you decide to do that?
Well, Mr. Robinson went out and said that we'd like to have Calvin Goode come back, so I came back and insisted that we get better equipment and better supplies and those kinds of things. And I was thrilled working there at Carver.
So your memories of Carver are good memories?
Exceptionally so. And I feel that, I guess we were the only high school in the city that had all master's degree teachers, as was indicated a little earlier.
And doctorates,
Yeah,
too.
some of them had doctorates and so on. So it was a good experience.
So the lesson there is that if the education is good, it doesn't matter where it's happening, what part of town it's happening in, these kids can thrive.
Well, we have great folks who graduated from Carver and making great contributions to this city, this nation.
Kim, when you've gone out and you've told the story, and you're raising money now for this restoration effort, what's been the response? How have people received you?
Now that they've learned about what's going on and the history and everything, there's been an outpouring of support. And I'm so grateful that the Arizona Community Foundation is working with many other community leaders and have established the Carver Restoration Fund. One of the funds at ACF is the Betty Fairfax Memorial Fund. And her sister, Jean Fairfax, who's 96 years old, just contributed to the Restoration Fund through the Betty Fairfax Memorial Fund. And Betty Fairfax used to be an instructor at Carver. And there's a school named after her.
Of course.
So what a
These
beautiful
are all
story.
names we know around town.
Yeah, what a beautiful story that is. And we continue to hear stories like that. We had one funder who didn't know anything about Carver High School and the history and just donated $2,000 to the cause.
Was it protected as a historic site? Is that how it remained? The building stayed, and now you